Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm your host, Todd Nesloni, and each week I look to bring you a different guest who has encouraged, inspired, or challenged me in one way or another and bring them on to share some of their story in hopes that it inspires you to tell some of yours. I'm thrilled for this week's guest. It is Amy Mascott. Amy, thank you for being here. Kind of tell everybody who you are.
Thank you for having me, Todd. I'm so happy to be here. So my name is Amy Mascott, and I am a former high school English teacher. It's how I started my career. And I moved into reading to be a reading specialist. And in that time, I kind of, I morphed into a blogger and parent. And so right now, I would consider myself definitely an educator, always. That never changes. But my focus is a little bit shifted over
Yeah.
time. And I'm an author, and I need to wear that proudly. That's
Yep.
for sure.
Well, great. Anytime I have a guest on, I always love to start back at the beginning. And that is when you were a kid, dreaming of what you wanted to be when you grew up. Does it align at all with anything you've done?
Good question. No, not really, but kind of indirectly. So I thought I wanted to be, an archaeologist, a
Mm.
lawyer. I had big dreams that way, but I was always, I'm the oldest of four girls, so I was always kind of teaching
Yeah.
and leading, and it's funny because my mom a couple weeks ago, maybe months now, sent me from Pennsylvania to Maryland, where we're in Maryland, sent me with one of those big boxes of everything that I had, like from growing up, like when your parents are like, get this stuff out of our house and put it in your house. So in that big box of like my life memories, there were a lot of different examples of me, writing and showing
Mhm.
how to create a kaleidoscope, how to make stained glass, whatever. Um, Here's how to, get your friends to join brownies or whatever. And I really feel like that mirrors what
Yeah.
I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I'm showing people how to, make a strong bridge between home and school. I'm showing parents how to take an active role in their kids' education, kind of like hand holding. So I feel like I've always been a teacher.
Yeah.
I just didn't realize it. And in college, when I was in my first kind of criminal justice class, big auditorium, and I was learning the laws and that kind of thing. I just thought, this is not me. Like I
Mhm.
do not feel like my creativity can blossom here.
Yeah.
And so I did some thinking with my college advisor, and I thought, one of the people who really influenced my life was my high school 11th grade honors English or AP English teacher, Mrs. Smullen. And so I thought, that's what I want to do. And that's when a shift happened.
I love that. And I always love when there's a particular person that you can lean back on and go, that person was really instrumental in
Mhm.
this career path for me. And
Mhm.
so always was secondary your interest, or did you ever have that urge to be like, I think I want to do some elementary too?
So always secondary. I mean, I loved, and I still love the idea, like just sitting on a stool in front of a class, talking about
Mhm.
like, you know, literary elements, stylistic elements. I love, love, love grammar. I love teaching parts of speech and writing and that kind of thing. So I always leaned towards high school. However, once I was actually teaching Todd, and I was trying to reach my ninth, 10th, 11th graders who could not read, or whose reading skills were so low that they weren't even like decoding To Kill a Mockingbird or
Mhm.
A Midsummer Night's Dream. And I had to send them off to the reading specialist, who at that time just like put them in front of a computer with like a
Mhm.
big headset, and who knows what they did in that room all day. But I thought, I should know how to teach kids to read.
Yeah.
Like, why don't I? And I realize now, I mean, it's um obviously apples and oranges, right?
Mhm.
But I love the process of reading acquisition. I love learning about the science behind teaching reading, and so that really opened up a whole new kind of world for me to.
Yeah.
Um, uh, and then when I actually, I finished my master's while I was home on childcare leave,
Uh-huh.
and so I had we had three kids rather quickly, three kids here at the house, my own little like subject that I could practice all that I was learning. And it was
Mhm.
amazing. It was such a gift. And that's how like the rest of my kind of career unfolded,
Yeah.
right? Like my girlfriends from college and neighbors and mom's group friends would call me during that precious nap time and say,
Mhm.
Amy, how should I teach Ella her name? What's a fun way of doing the alphabet? Like, should my kid know the alphabet right now? And I would say, oh yeah, like here's what to do, this, and this. And then I'd hang up, and then like babies would be crying and my nap time would be over. My rest time, I quiet.
Yeah.
So I was like, if these people want to know this, then they can't be the only ones. And so
Mhm.
then one night in 2008, which is like a lifetime ago, I sat at the computer, the big, gigantic computer in our basement, and started a blogger blog
Mhm.
and called it Teach Mama. And I really just wanted to demystify
Yeah.
education for parents. And it really kind of afforded me an amazing, like a plethora of opportunities because sure, that was like the blog boom
Mhm.
and mom blogs were a dime a dozen, but I set myself apart from them because I had an educational spin.
Right.
And I was a huge, and still am a huge nerd for research. And so I would write up an activity like, here's how to, fun ways of learning the alphabet. And
Mhm.
then I would add the research below it. Here's
Yeah.
why you should do this because the reading teacher says blah, 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 blah. Because I was like, all of a sudden, all these experts are on the internet saying that they're like, experts in this and experts in that, but they really weren't. And so I wanted the proof, and that really was, I think, what kind of helped me propel early on
Mhm.
in my career.
Well, you bring up something that we've talked about in a few episodes now, and I love that you are such a great example of your passions can shift and
Mhm.
take you down different career paths, but it doesn't diminish your love for education and for teaching. And I think sometimes people think like, oh, when you moved into writing this, when you moved into creating this, you left the classroom. Do you miss it all? And it's like, I still love doing that. My passions can grow and change, but it doesn't diminish the love that I had for things at the beginning. And that's what I love about you is you can always see that even though you aren't in a classroom today, your heart is still in a classroom and working with those kids, and you can feel it when you talk. So I love that you shared that. But one thing too, Amy, is you've had the opportunity to become an author, and so how did that present itself? That opportunity?
That is one of the greatest things ever, and I still feel like I have so many other books in my head that are in various stages of draft.
Mhm.
But I early on, I went to blog conferences. Honestly, I liked. I went to Blog Her, which is like one of the old school blog conferences, um, and I because I always wanted to learn. I honestly think, Todd, if there was a job that was like forever student, like I would sign up. Like sign me up. I will do. I will just take classes.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to become better at the craft of blogging, and so I went to conferences early, and at those events, um, I made great connections.
Mhm.
And so early on, I connected with people from Scholastic, and let me think. I think just kind of making those connections.
Mhm.
Eventually, I I co-anchored the Scholastic Parents Raise a Reader blog,
Oh,
and that
nice.
was huge for me. Um, as far as, getting my name out. And then I actually wrote an ebook that was called 5-Minute Tricks to Raising Rockstar Readers, because I wanted parents to know all you need is 5 minutes a day. That's
Yeah.
it. Like, spend 5 minutes playing with letters, and your kids will, like, just the benefits are just so amazing. You know this. But I was telling my contacts at Scholastic, I created this ebook and it is like selling like crazy. And they were like, oh, that sounds good. And then it kind of moved to that point. So my story is not typical, but I
Yeah.
think the important thing to take away is you never know the contacts you'll make at these different events. And I think that continuing your learning, continuing your kind of education that way just has invaluable payoffs.
What you said is such a perfect example of the reason we're on social media, the reason we go to these conferences before the pandemic, and all these things is, you get to show people your heart and get to meet people and build those connections, and you never know what they may lead to. And you're not making those connections in hopes that they lead to something. You're just making connections to grow and learn and get better. And that's where, when people always ask me like, how did this happen? I was like, I don't know. I just wanted to genuinely build a relationship with this person. And later down the road, it led to this. And that was never the expectation at the beginning.
Yes.
But, Amy, something that I try to ask about in every episode is, I know no matter how much success you find, no matter what you do that works well, there's always that lingering doubt that starts to creep back in, or that comparison thief and all those kind of things. And so what do you do to keep doubt at bay?
Oh, that is so, so true. It is that imposter syndrome is so real. And what I do is, honestly, it's hard because I am in social media immersed every day, but I really try to limit my intake of content online. Pinterest is huge for me as a traffic referrer.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But looking on Pinterest, I'm like, oh, I did that 10 years ago. Like, what? Like, where'd you get that? And so, I feel like I have to really be conscious of how I spend my time online. It has to be deliberate. Honestly, we all get stuck just scrolling on Facebook or Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, whatever. And I feel like I have to limit that for myself. Because there are awesome people out there who are always going to be more creative, smarter, more innovative than you. And we just have to, We just have to, lift each other so that we're all rising. There's space for us all. You know what I mean? And I think that I just need to remember that. I really need to stay, in the word and deepen my faith every day also. And that helps. Because once I kind of start losing focus of that and my anchor in faith, then all heck breaks loose.
Yeah. Well, I think of you, and you do so many fantastic things, and you remind me of myself with the always having your hand in something and something else going on. And so I'd love to know how, and I know what you're probably going to say as soon as I ask this, because I feel like we all have the same answer for this, but how do you balance and maintain energy despite all the things that you're doing? And I know none of us are perfect at balance, but what do you do to kind of keep the fire burning?
Such a good question. I really struggle with that. And I feel like we are alike in that way. I just want to do everything. But I'm actually working with a person now who's helping me get more streamlined so that I can say like, yes. And instead of, and like deliberately, make these choices instead of having things fall on my lap in my inbox and me going like, oh yeah, that sounds good. So her name is Jill Riley, and she is an old blogger friend. And I say that she's my age, but she's been in the space forever. But she's an amazing coach. So talk about a like a shifting of your, career and that kind of thing. But
Mhm.
she's awesome, and she's really helping me eliminate things from my plate and streamline my priorities.
Right.
Um, and honestly, I said to her the other day, I feel like such a loser that I have to like work with a coach to help me with this. And she's like, Amy, like people work with trainers. They work, like
Mhm.
this is not a reflection of like you as like a failure. Like I am just helping you like kind of see the bright light at the end so that
Yeah.
you can be like your best person. And then that helped. I don't know if
You
that.
know, I love that though, because that is such a great reminder for people listening is that working with someone to help you get better isn't a bad thing. Like you said, people work with the physical fitness coach, they work with a
Mhm,
nutritional coach, they work with a therapist, they work with a life coach, they work with a organization coach. I mean,
mhm,
I think about how so many of us get in our head that it's a bad thing, but
yeah,
then we binge watch the Marie Kondo or whatever her name was,
mhm.
and we binge watch all these renovation things where these professionals come in and coach you how to do stuff, coach you how to organize, and we're like, these are so great. And then it's like, oh, but I can't have any help because that means I'm not. And it's like, why do we do that to ourselves? Because I
I
find
know.
myself in the same way.
Yes, it's so true. It's so true. And it's just like the home edit, which I don't
Yep.
we've been binge watching. I love it. Like, and I am editing my workspace so that, like literally when we first started working, I work with brands, I work with
Mhm.
like I had inquiries about writing books. I have like the learning match, which is, a new business venture. So many things that I'm doing nothing well, you
Yeah.
know?
Mhm. I think
Um,
that's a great idea. Sometimes we can take on too many little things that
yes.
we're not doing any of them well, which is when sometimes we're so down in the weeds, we need somebody viewing overhead to say, cut this out, spend more time here, focus on this. And so I love that you shared that. And so, when you think of the path that your life has taken and all the experiences you've been through, when you reflect back on all of that, what's one of those things that you look back on and go, okay, that was really instrumental into creating the person I am today?
Mm. Wow, that's a heavy one. I wish I would've had a little bit of prep for that one, Todd. Um, I think,
And I know there's probably lots of examples, so just one that comes
yeah,
to mind.
um, I maybe it's, um, I guess, honestly, like, just thinking back to, Mrs. Smullen, like,
Yeah.
good teachers who s like, gave me positive
Mhm.
reinforcement.
Yeah.
Amy, you are a great writer. Like, I love how you and specific feedback too, not good or
Yeah.
way to go, but I love how you think about what you're reading,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
so I would say my high school teachers, um, who really just took the time to get to know me
Yeah.
and to, listen, and also just, um write recommendations or write or even just
Mhm.
like, little, not just full-fledged recommendation letters, but helping me fill out applications, and just giving me feedback that way. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I was a leader in the classroom.
Mhm.
I didn't. Like, I always thought that I took a back seat to, like, those really, really, gifted kids. I never
Mhm.
and seeing the feedback that said that Amy is a leader in the classroom or um, uh, a go-to for her
Mhm.
peers, written by an adult that I really respected and
Yeah.
admired, was so helpful because it changed the way I looked at myself.
I think that's a great reminder that our words matter when we say
Mhm.
things to people, and sometimes our words can help them see things they didn't have any idea that they had within them. Well,
Yeah.
Amy, as we wrap this up, one question I always love to end these conversations on is, I believe as people, there are certain things that we just hold close to our heart and are true to who we are. And so for anybody listening or watching today, if they were to walk away with one thing, what would your one thing be for them?
I would just say, go for it. Like, just
Mhm.
try it. You don't have to be an expert before you give something a go. If I never would have started that blog, teachmama.com, in 2008, my life would have taken a completely different trajectory. And all I did was like open up an account and learn as I go. And I feel like that's half of teaching, right? Like
Mhm.
flying by the seat of your pants, but not just in the classroom, but anywhere. Like if you
Yeah.
want to start a new business, try it, go for it. Life is too short.
I love that. Well, Amy, I was so excited when you were agreed to share some time with me today. So thank you so much for coming on Tell Your Story.
Thanks for having me, Todd. I love what you're doing. It's so fun for, especially for people who love people. Like I
Uh-huh.
just love to like get to know your friends. So thanks.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for listening or watching another episode of Tell Your Story. Remember, you can check out past episodes on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get your stuff, it's there. I hope today's conversation with Amy has encouraged you to get out there and tell your story because every story matters.